Welcome to day 21 of my 90 days journey of creating $5,000 in passive income. Today, I want to first share my experience with my first Airbnb guest. She stayed with me for 2 nights and she checked out earlier this morning. My appearance was overall positive. There are many wonderful things I can say about her. She's very tidy. When I went up to the room after she left, it was almost in the exact same condition as when she came in. There was no trash on the floor. The bed sheets was pulled and arranged like it was before. She even folded the towels and left them on the bed. She also got along great with my dog. When she walked in the door, my dog, who's usually pretty protective, was wagging her tail and welcoming her. And she was also um, very good at following my house rules and directions. A lot of people who come to my house for the first time have trouble locating the house, even when I send specific instructions. But for her, she didn't have any questions regarding the checking in. And when I came back, she had already got into the house. She was also pretty quiet. She was already in bed at 9 p.m. and she got up around 9 a.m. the next day. During the time that she was in her room, I didn't hear any sounds coming from there. And finally, she was pretty respectful of the cleanliness of the house. We got rain here yesterday, and before she came inside the house, she would change her shoes so she doesn't trudge dirt and water inside the house. Then now as for the cons, this is a very minor con, and I may just be nitpicking, but I found out that she was not very conversational. I always like to learn about someone new that I meet, but she didn't seem very interested in engaging in conversation. And also, I left her a review almost as soon as she checked out. I assumed that she would also be leaving me a review at some shortly after. It's been almost 12 hours since then and still no review yet. And finally, this is not really a con, more like an accident, but she did leave one item behind from her daughter. I sent her a photo and she came back in a few hours to pick it up, so always good there. My overall experience of my first guest is very positive. And the only thing in general about hosting Airbnb is if you live in the same house as the guest, then when they are sleeping or during late times at night, you will not be able to do some of the things you normally do. For me, it would be making these kind of videos. I'm talking in my normal voice now, but the last few days you might have noticed that I was talking with a lot less decibel because of not wanting to disturb my guest. Now I'd like to move on to give an update about my home purchase. In the last video, I shared that we found out that our house appraised for less than the purchase price, which allows us to ask the seller to reduce the purchase price, or we can walk away from the deal. Today I had a nice conversation with my real estate agent. He also supported my idea of the negotiation and he's actually said this is a great deal for you guys because now you can get the house for even less. And he would take care of the negotiation with the seller. But he doesn't plan to tell them about the appraisal right away. We have some contractors going to the house this week to do various estimates. One is for the roof, another is for the sewer line, another is for can't remember right now, but it's also a pretty important one. Once we get the prices of all of those things and the seller agrees to reduce the price, then my agent will tell them about the appraised value. I think that's the best way to get a even lower price than what he would normally agree to. So I trust him very much, and I'll let him handle this part of the home purchase. And finally, for the last tidbit I want to share is today I purchased a membership to Business Insider. I never really paid attention to this publication in the past, but I got a notification from Google of an article that piqued my interest. It was about a couple who was able to retire in their 40s after investing in 100 properties and then making $100,000 per month in passive income. That's like where I want to be in the next few years. And what's surprising about their success is that they did this during the time the real estate prices were going up, and then there was the epic housing crash of 2008, whereas most people who invested in real estate really suffered. This couple actually acquired even more properties through their smart decisions and diligence. I wanted to learn what allowed them to be successful even during such turbulent times, and I found out that that this person actually has a book called, I'll have to find that name. I'll put the name right up there. Spoiler alert, if you want to read the book, you should stop watching this video and go read it, because I'm about to spoil the contents. The main takeaway from reading this book is that the author was extremely diligent in doing his homework when he was looking at properties. He would analyze at least 100 properties before he even makes a purchase decision. And he has a rule he swears by, which is never buy any alligator properties. An alligator property is any property that costs him money every month. The goal is to purchase a house and rent it out, but some houses need so much in repairs or have such high mortgage rate that you're actually negative when it comes to making a profit on your investment. And he focused in a specific area that he found out to be a great market for investment. This guy lived in Silicon Valley, and all the prices there are insane, but he started out with a goal of following the 1% rule, which is you should buy the property for you should be able to rent the property for 1% of what you paid for. And it took him forever to find a property. He never found a property like that in Silicon Valley. And he would take road trips with his wife farther and farther each time, and eventually he found some properties that allowed him to make the 1% in Fresno, California. And the more he looked, the better he felt about the neighborhood, and that's where he focused nearly all his efforts. The way that he was able to beat the housing crash whereas most other investors got burned was because he had a strong pulse on the market. He would look at listings every day, and he got a feel for what prices homes were selling for, and the demand, the competition among buyers. And when he sensed that things were starting to go downhill, he did a recalculation of his expected revenue and decided that it was not worth it to stay with single-family homes. That was nearly pretty much everything he had in his portfolio. At that time, he decided to make the switch to multi-family homes. And he learned this awesome tax trick called 1031 exchange. That's when a tax benefit that allows you to sell a home and not pay capital gains tax on the appreciation if you take the money and immediately invest into another property. And so when he found out that his single-family properties were no longer viable investment vehicles, he used the 1031 exchange to convert most of them into multifamily properties, which on a per cost basis was much more effective at generating income than single family. And because he took advantage of these opportunities when they came available, and he was diligent in building relationships with everyone he came in contact with, he eventually developed a reputation as someone who closes all of his deals. And that allowed him to have the snowball effect and get even more deals. And by the 10 to 15 year mark, he had close to 100 properties that were giving him nearly $100,000 per month. He also, this is not to say he didn't have challenges during this time. When he bought his first rental property, the tenant stopped paying him rent after the first month, and he had to spend a fortune to evict them. And after that, another fortune to fix up all the damages they did. And also when the housing market crashed and everyone became fearful, it was very difficult for him to get loans from the bank, since they had strict requirements that no one can have can receive more than 4 mortgages. So he looked for creative ways of financing, including borrowing against his 401k, and then looking to hard money lenders, and finally to private lenders. He was extremely fair to everyone he worked with, which built up his reputation and made it more desirable for others to work with him in the future. And right now, he is retired, but he's still very active in the real estate space. He really wants to help young people, especially families, get started in acquiring their first properties. I already subscribed to his YouTube channel, and I plan to send him, give him introduction to my friend who has a podcast to help spread the word. It's really amazing how through persistent effort and making good decisions over time can compound so much. I believe he's at least 10 years ahead of what I want to achieve, but for the next 10 years, if I work smart and make good decisions, I can accelerate that timeline, maybe to 8 or 7 years. Really glad I came across his work, and hopefully something in this book also helps you. I'll post a link to the article and the title of his book down in the description, and feel free to check it out. If you found any part of this video helpful, or if you like to stay updated on my journey, feel free to subscribe to my channel and like this video. That's all for today. Peace!